What's going on, travelers? Sam here, back at it again for another video. And in today's video, I wanted to talk about my favorite little Dendro Archon Nahida and why I think she is, in fact, a must pull. So let's get into it. Now you're probably wondering to yourself, Sam, you said the one thing you're not really supposed to say in Genshin Impact, a character is a must pull. Well, little Timmy, I'm here to tell you, if you care about meta, if you care about clearing the abyss, or if you're struggling to complete any of the new abysses, Nahida is arguably the best tool and one of the best characters to help you get there. So let's talk about it. So let's start off with Nahida. Now, before we get into her kit, her weapons, let's just talk about her. She is adorable. I mean, look at this little character. She got the little elf ears. She'll pop on her swing. Adorable. So that's already a big boon for Nahida. Now let's jump on over to her talents. Now for Nahida, her normal attacks really aren't that great. Their scaling is, it's pretty meh. But the one good thing about Nahida is, obviously she is a catalyst user and she's Dendro, so she can be a good driver for your Dendro reaction. So maybe if you don't have Kokomi, maybe if you don't have a built Mona, or maybe you just don't want to use them, she can be a really good driver because she is a catalyst user and her normals do proc pretty quickly. Now, moving on over to her elemental skill, this is really where Nahida shines. So her elemental skill is a little bit complicated, but it functions very simply, very smoothly. So essentially what you do is, obviously you have a tap version and a hold version. Your tap version really just hits any targets in your immediate proximity and tags them with what they call the Seed of Skanda. Basically, it acts like a tether. So, for example, if you have one enemy, or if you hit two enemies with her elemental skill, it's going to tether them together, and anytime there's elemental reactions presented upon that enemy, it's going to do damage to the other enemy as well. Now, you'll see in Spiral Abyss, where there's a lot of enemies, this becomes very cracked very quickly, and it can also act as another form of grouping. I mean, it's not going to be as great as Animo is for grouping, but the damage is still distributed equally amongst all the enemies that are tagged with her elemental skill. Now, her charge version, it functions the same way. However, you get into this little picture mode and you're able to basically tag all those enemies with one swoop. So if you're on mouse and keyboard or mobile, it's really cracked because you can do it really quickly. I mean, you can just spin her right round, baby, right round if you're on mouse and keyboard or on mobile. So definitely her elemental skill is very pog, and basically the damage that's being distributed is called the Tri-Karma Purification, and that damage scales off her EM. So when I talk about her kit and her artifacts later, her weapons and her artifacts later, keep in mind you really want to focus on elemental mastery, because as you'll see, the scaling from EM is double the attack. So attack percent is very important, obviously, but you'll want to build Nahida pretty much full EM or almost full EM. Now, moving on over to her elemental burst, the Elisary Heart. This is also a very big part of her kit. So basically what you do is you summon this big Dendro Cathedral. That's the way I like to look at it. Pretty sure it has the biggest AoE of any ability in Genshin Impact. So it's massive. And when you have certain characters from certain elements in your team, it has different impacts on Nahida. So for example, Pyro is just going to have more damage dealt from her Tri-Karma Purification. Electro is going to lower how quickly her Tri-Karma Purification ticks, so it lowers the interval, which is really pog. And then Hydro just boosts how much longer her burst lasts. So for me, I really like to pair her with Electro and Hydro. Obviously for Hyper Bloom, that's just my favorite type of reactions with Dendro and with Nahida. But obviously, if you want to run her in a Bersian team, still very cracked. She's still the best Dendro applicator for Bersian teams. But I would just say Electro and Hydro have much more better boost for Nahida. Now, moving on over to her talents. Now, Nahida's talents are also super cracked. So her first talent, when you pop her burst, essentially what it does is it takes the elemental mastery of your character with the most EM, which in most cases is either Nahida, or you usually have a character with 1,000 EM. 1,000 EM is really the number you want to strive for, and it takes that EM and puts it onto your active character. So obviously, as you'll know, Dendro reactions scale on elemental mastery. So if you're able to shift whichever character has the most EM to your active character, it pops off. Specifically, like if you have Alhaitham or Tainari, and you have like a Kuki Shinobu with 1,000 EM, and then you swap to your Tainari or Alhaitham, holy smokes, Batman, it does a lot of damage really quickly. So this talent is absolutely bonkers. Now moving on over to her second talent, also a pretty good talent, really more so for Nahida and her damage, but pretty much, like I said, you want to scale as much EM with her as possible because her second talent boosts the damage based on her EM and also boosts the crit rate of her Karma Purification. So like I said, definitely, did I mention definitely scale her with EM. And then her last talent, this is just kind of fun. It makes, farming, materials in the open world a little bit more fun and enjoyable. Now, that's kind of her high-level overview of her kit. Moving on over to her weapons, which unfortunately I can't show in this preview, but Nahida really wants elemental mastery, like I mentioned. She really wants sack frags, I would say, is probably her go-to weapon. Obviously, if you have some extra primos and you want to go for her weapon is honestly incredibly broken for her, makes her even more nutty. But you can use a Witzith. A Witzith is a good weapon as well. Definitely, it has moments where it's even better for her than probably sack frags when you get the EM boost. Unfortunately, you don't know when that's going to be, so you'll definitely have to kind of get a little lucky here and there. And then as far as her artifacts are concerned, you really want to more often than not run Deepwood Memories on her 4-piece. You can do 4-piece Gilded Dreams. However, you'll have to have pretty much another character on your team with Deepwood Memories, because if you don't have Deepwood Memories on her or another character on your party, you're significantly missing out on a lot of the Dendro damage that comes from the 4-piece resistance shred of Deepwood Memories. So if you build Nahida for Gilded Dreams, it's nice because you're going to have additional elemental mastery, and it also kind of boosts her damage, but you're losing out on the Deepwood Memory. So I always just recommend running 4-piece Deepwood Memory on her, just because it's really the best for her and also the team. But I think that's pretty much it. I covered her weapons. Constellations. So Nahida at C0, super cracked. I will say I'm not even going to touch C6 because so few people really get to C6. I think if you have Nahida already, C1 and C2 make her even nuttier. I, on my main account, was really lucky and actually got her C2. But basically, her C1, it adds an extra tally, per se, to the amount of characters that are being calculated in her burst. So if you have one Hydro character, it gives you 2. If you have one Electro character, it gives you 2. If you have 2 Electro characters, it gives you 3, and vice versa. Now, I believe this even works for characters that you don't have in your party. So let's say you're running a Hyper Bloom team. Obviously, there's no Pyro character in that team. I'm pretty sure from the testing I've seen that it even factors in the attack bonus or the damage bonus from Pyro characters. Don't quote me on that. I think that's what I've seen. But C1, very good. C2, holy smokes, Batman, again, takes her to the next level. Basically, it just boosts the damage of all the Dendro reactions and allows them to crit, and it boosts their crit rate and crit damage. Nuts. So I think if you really want Nahida, C2 is like the cutoff, but you don't need it because at C1 she is absolutely insane as is, and then C1 is pretty good as well. But that's pretty much it. I think that's really what I wanted to say about Nahida. I'm genuinely curious how many of you are wishing for her. So let me know in the comments if you're going for her, if you're going for Nilou, if you're saving up for the Boo Boo Pharmacy man himself, Baiju, or just a future character. But as always, I appreciate you all so much, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace!